Okay, let's unpack this. We're going deep on the recent Yorkshire Dales trial today. And, on the surface, it might just seem like, well, another motor trial, another set of results. But when you dig into the reports, the observations, it's actually this fascinating story. It's all about how these really specific, quite extreme conditions and some intricate challenges didn't just affect the outcome. They pretty much defined it, really pushed skill, adaptability, resilience, to the absolute limit.
Yeah, what's really striking, looking through the material we've got, is how that phrase, one of the driest springs on record, just pops up again and again. It massively influenced the trial.
Yeah.
So you had this, glorious weather. It sounds perfect, right? But that dryness actually meant it was a low-scoring affair for the cars. Lots of grip, maybe too much in places. And yet the organizers, they still did well to take points from every single motorcycle, which set up this really interesting kind of unusual competitive dynamic right from the start.
That is fascinating. So, okay, our mission for you today, listening in, is to get beyond just who finished where. We want to explore the why. Why did it shake out like this? We'll look at the surprising facts, the key sections that really made the difference, those standout performances, and just the sheer grit and sometimes ingenuity needed. Think of it as your essential guide to really getting under the skin of this year's Yorkshire Dales trial. All right, so let's set the scene. This year, the event was back with its returning custodians, the Ilkley and District Motor Club. That was for 2025. And the start point, Pateley Bridge. Sounds pretty idyllic from the reports. Picturesque place, lots of activity, apparently ample parking, always a plus. Really efficient scrutineering, the pre-event checks, and just generally a nice atmosphere. Everyone seemed to be enjoying the sunshine, which was just continuous. The road itself, a hefty 65 miles, winding through those amazing Yorkshire Dales.
And yeah, this is where those really dry conditions became such a big part of the story. The reports really emphasize it with so much grip. Pretty much everywhere. It meant that tight turns were the order of the day. That's where the challenge shifted. And interestingly, apparently a couple of them weren't clearly marked, which, as we'll definitely see later, added this extra layer of navigational challenge. You had to be constantly switched on.
Yeah, that little bit of ambiguity in the marking must have really upped the pressure. Okay, speaking of mastering those conditions, let's look at the car results, because they really show how tough it was just to stay penalty-free. We saw an impressive 6 clean sheets recorded in the cars. So 6 teams managed the whole course without dropping a single point, which is, well, remarkable in itself. The overall winners, Julian Lack and Sam Lindsay in their DP Wasp. That's one of those nimble, purpose-built trial cars.
Right.
And the reports say they really summited everything that could be thrown at them. They clinched the win in the special test, those timed bits, by just under 1 second. Super close. Yeah, and there's a great description. Sam Lindsay apparently bouncing in the passenger seat, while Julian Lacroix calmly blasts his DP Wasp up Watergate 2.
Yeah, great image. And those margins were razor thin right at the top. Lee Peck and Brian Partridge, they were the runners-up, second overall in a Kraken K2, another specialized bit of kit, followed closely by John Ramsden in third. And, it's worth shouting out Mark Busfield and Simon Kingsley, too. Class 5. In the 1172cc Trident, they also managed a 0-point run. Really impressive. Oh, and Ian Daniels in the Locust Special. He just managed to pip Dean Partington for 5th overall. Shows you how tight it was.
Absolutely. And then there's Paul Stumpy Merson, finished 7th overall. His story really shows how quickly things can change in these events. His only points came from the downhill end to the final section.
Oh, no.
Yeah, his Shopland got beached on a tree stump. And what makes it so, well, gutting for him, I suppose, is that he was actually leading the whole trial. Clean sheet. Right up until that last section, Westwood.
Oof, that's brutal.
Yeah, it really shows how every single bit of the course counts, right to the end.
It absolutely does. Highlights those fine margins perfectly. Look at Simon Oates, too. 8th overall, won Class 7 in his liege. He, along with John Early and Dave Middleditch, who finished 10th, rounding out the top 10 on 8 points. They all dropped their points in the exact same place.
The same place? Where was that?
Missing the same gate on Section 5. Specifically, the diversion to the 8 marker on Draghill 2.
Draghill again?
Yep. So one single, maybe poorly marked or just tricky to spot gate took out 3 potential top finishers. Show how unforgiving a simple nav error can be.
Wow. One small thing, changing so much for so many people. Incredible. And then David Golightly, 11th overall, won Class 2 in that really unique Model T-based board racer.
Oh, yeah. Cool car.
He had a different kind of problem, didn't he?
Yeah, he actually spotted that tricky 8 marker on section 5 that cut the others out, but then he ran out of steering lock trying to get around the 9 marker on sword point 2.
Right, a mechanical limitation of that specific older car, essentially.
Exactly. Just couldn't make the turn.
Interesting. And the other class winners, we had Karen Warren, who came all the way from Devon to win Class 6.
Quite a trip.
Keith Dobinson won Class 90, but only by a single point from Keith Ferentz.
Close.
Sam Holmes took Class 4 in that familiar 1300 Beetle, you see it around a lot, and Chris Morrison was first in Class 1 in his Citroen AX. So, good results across the board there.
Okay, switching over to the motorcycles now. Nigel Thompson took the overall win. He was on his Class B3 Monteza 4 ride, finished on just 5 points, which, considering the organizers managed to take points off every biker, is a really, really strong performance.
Yeah, that's impressive consistency.
It really is. He was followed by Ollie Hay, John Lappin on his 200 Fantic, and Michael Hinckley. And interestingly, all 3 of them dropped the same 8 points that caught out so many of the cars.
So back to Draghill Section 5 again.
You got it. That 8 marker, it was clearly the bogey point of the whole trial for pretty much everyone except Class 8 cars.
Yeah, definitely sounds like the make or break spot. Townsea Championship leader John Reeves, he dropped 9 points. Tied, actually, with the Class A winner, Richard Clay, on his 350 Enfield Bullet. And, one thing the reports mentioned, which was nice to see.
What was that?
The return of Al Lidgate and John Webb, that former Red Rose Bowl winning pair.
Oh, yeah, the EML Yamaha outfit. Great to see them back.
Yeah, exactly. A familiar, classic pairing back on the results sheet. Always good to see it. Right, let's zoom in a bit more now. Let's talk about some of those specific sections and what they tell us. First up, Watergate. Reports say these were pretty familiar sections.
Yeah, known sections, not too many failures reported there generally. Although Charlie Nifton apparently had some issues with the restarts on both 1 and 2.
Ah, the restarts. Stopping on a slope and pulling away cleanly. Always tricky. Tests clutch control, doesn't it?
Precisely. A very specific skill needed there. Okay, and then Dryghill. We've mentioned it a few times, but it was absolutely critical. Specifically Section 2 for bikes and, well, most cars, Class 8 didn't do it. And the key thing, as we said, the 8 gate was way off to the right, off the beaten track.
Hidden away a bit.
Seems like it. The reports are clear. Most of the entry missed it.
Yeah.
And that massively skewed the car results because Class 8, by not attempting it, obviously didn't get penalized there.
Right, so the route variation between classes had a big impact on the overall standing.
Huge impact, yeah.
Okay, next up. Strid Wood. 4 sections here, starting with, an infamous gully.
Huh, yeah. Sounds like a real test of ground clearance.
I bet. And Stridwood 2 sounds like that was particularly nasty.
It does. A 90 right onto the track, described as very sharp with a big rock on the outside.
Ouch. Recipe for disaster.
Took a number of scalps, apparently, including Mark Gregg, the Edinburgh trial regular in the Reliant-powered Austin 7.
Well, big name.
Yeah. And Mike Pocock, who used to organize the Northern Trial, and Dave Sargent's in his Immaculate Beetle.
So it caught out experienced people in very different machines.
Exactly. And even Michael Leeds-Dello apparently fluffed one of the 6, 7, and 8 restarts in another of the Strid sections, so precision was just vital through there. Then Hop Hike. 2 familiar sections again. Hop Hike 2 seems to have been the main challenge. There was a drop into the stream that caught out Chris Sievers in his Ford Special, and Sam Oddie in the Suzuki Ignis. Water sections always add an element of unpredictability.
Definitely. And after those observed sections, they hit the Highfield Farm special test.
Yeah, sounds like fun, actually. Described as a glorious windy thrash.
Nice.
And apparently done under the watchful eye of the landowner and his family. Adds a bit of atmosphere. These tests make speed and precision a different skill set again.
Right. And then after the relatively straightforward Ehlers section, it was time for lunch.
Yep. Sounds like a very welcome break. A very civilized lunch stop at Fewston Village Hall. The reports mentioned great views, a chance to get out of that relentless sun for a bit.
Must have been needed.
Oh, I bet. And nice food, plus generous cups of tea. Can't beat that halfway through a tough trial. Sounds perfect. Then recharged onto Sword Point. These were woodland sections, apparently with some substantial trees to hit, if you weren't careful.
Bit of jeopardy there.
Definitely. And the tight turns here were again a problem for some of the older cars with limited steering lock. That theme keeps cropping up.
Yeah, vehicle design versus section design.
Exactly. And crucially, on the second Sword Point section, the 12 marker was right over to the right and not that obvious.
Right.
Led to quite a few penalties, mostly bikes this time, but also Ray Ferguson and his liege got caught out there.
Okay, moving on. Shawnswood. Sounds a bit nicer.
Yeah, reports say nice sections mostly on well-defined tracks.
Mm.
Because of all the grip, they were actually relatively easy.
Ah, but they noted they would have been challenging in the wet.
Exactly. Shows how conditions dictate everything.
And there was an interesting note here about Simon Oates, who did so well overall.
Yeah.
He had actually driven the Flora trial just the week before. That's, 420 miles away from Paisley Bridge?
Wow, that's dedication. And stamina.
Incredible, right. Suggests he was really in the zone, despite the travel. Maybe that recent experience helped.
Could well have done. Kept him sharp. Then Brimham Lodge. This section provides a great example of how the time of day mattered. The reports noted that the grass under the trees could have been really slippery first thing in the morning, with dew. A potential real problem.
Right, typical early morning hazard.
But by the time the competitors got there, mid-trial, the dew had dried out under the sun. So it turned into just a simple blast to the top. Conditions changed the challenge completely.
Timing is everything.
And it was nice to see photographer Dave Cook was out there capturing the action. Apparently, he hadn't been too well recently, so good to see him back out.
Yeah, definitely good news. Okay, almost there. The Somerset field test. This was Paul Merson's moment, wasn't it? Leading the trial before
the final hurdle.
Yeah.
Clean sheet up to this point.
And that final hurdle was Westwood. By all accounts, this was the toughest section of the day for the cars.
And right at the end, too, just a few miles from the finish. Maximum pressure.
Described as twisty, with a drop into a gully with deep ruts and a short, sharp climb out. Sounds like a classic trial section.
Absolutely. And this is where, as we said, Paul Merson unfortunately dropped those crucial points. Beach to Shopland. Cost him wheel spin points, too, those vital championship points.
Devastating.
Yeah. And the reports also mentioned that the more modern cars who couldn't get the momentum to get up the final bank also really struggled here.
So maybe it favored cars that could maintain momentum through the ruts, perhaps older, lighter ones?
Potentially, yeah. Shows how different sections can favor different types of vehicle setup. So, reflecting on the whole thing, back at the finish, the general feeling, the overall competitor opinion, was that the club had done a good job, especially considering how tricky it is to set a challenging course when the ground is so dry and there's so much grip.
Yeah, it's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? You'd think dry is easier.
Exactly. But it presents different problems. And look, no event is perfect. The vibe seems to be that the organizers know this, and they've learned a few things to improve for next year.
That's good to hear. Always evolving.
Yeah, that's the sign of a well-run event, I think.
Yeah.
Taking feedback, learning.
So yeah, it started as this glorious sunny day in the Yorkshire Dales, but it really turned into this, masterclass in adaptation, didn't it? Dealing with very specific, unusual conditions. And it perfectly showed why some competitors managed to shine, while others, even really experienced ones, stumbled.
So what does this all mean when we look at competitive trials? I think this event highlights this really interesting paradox. The dry conditions seem ideal, right? But they actually created completely new layers of difficulty.
Right.
Yeah, some of the traditional challenges, maybe slippery climbs, they became easier. But then you got these new problems, those really tight turns, testing steering lock, the importance of spotting markers that might have been subtly placed. This whole deep dive, it really just emphasizes that constant interplay, that dance between planning and execution, and then having to adapt on the fly.
For both the competitors and the organizers.
Absolutely. It's that dynamic between preparation and, improvisation when things don't go exactly as planned.
That sums it up perfectly. And maybe that leads a thought for you listening at home. What does this kind of deep dive into one specific event, like the Yorkshire Dales trial, really reveal about competition itself? Or maybe think about how those tiny, seemingly insignificant details, a single missed gate marker, maybe just not having quite enough steering lock for one corner, how they can completely change everything despite all the planning and preparation. What aspect of this journey through the Dales resonates most with your thoughts on, I suppose, preparation versus that pure on-the-spot ingenuity? Something to chew on.